and you are not getting it. Denial is a river in Egypt, and your husband is a pervert. I am doing a rose video, deep dive video, whatever you want to call it, for a memoir. And this is something that I never thought that I would do, because I've done this for romance, fantasy, thriller books, and I just never expected for me to do one about a memoir. But you know, sometimes real life is messier than fiction. I actually picked up the memoir called More with innocent intentions because I am a memoir girly. If you are an active viewer of this channel, you'll know that I love reading memoirs. I was intrigued by this memoir because it was about the author's open relationship. Because even though I'm monogamous, I have friends who are in open relationships, open marriages, and it all works out for them just fine. But they are queer friends, so when they open their relationship, it is more of like a shared experience with that third person. Whereas the dynamic of a straight couple, they have to see other partners separately. And I was just so curious about how it works. However, as I read more and more about this book, it felt less like an empowering story about a mother reclaiming her sexuality and expanding her horizons, and more so a really sad story where she's crying the majority of the time, she's having awful experiences, and her husband, who has been very encouraging of her to make open marriage work, he is a person that gives me very weird vibes. I do want to emphasize that I don't think this is a good reflection of open marriage or being poly, but obviously it is the author's personal experience, and that's all you can really speak for. However, I do think when you write a memoir, there is a degree of self-reflection that is expected in order to have a better memoir. Like, you gotta explain or reflect on certain things that are happening instead of just saying it and then expecting the audience to like roll with the punches. Like, for example, setting up an exotic Latina profile when you are not Latina, deciding to open your marriage but only with men who are already in relationships and their partners don't know that they're cheating on them, so that doesn't really count as like an open relationship, and like so many other things. But again, we will dive into it. It truly is a wild roller coaster, and so I just feel like it's only fitting for me to partner with a brand called Wild for this video. I really hate buying new deodorant every single time my previous one runs out. So what's really great about Wild is that they offer refillable body care products. So I really like how they have eliminated single-use plastic for these essentials, especially when it comes to their deodorant. But they have other things too, like body wash, hand wash, lip balm. The bonus points for me though is how cute their cases are. They come in so many different colors and designs, like this cute bee one, or you can even engrave it like I did with my name. And then from just one case, you can choose from over 14 refill scents. What I've really liked so far from using their deodorant is that they have this really nice creamy texture because they use shea butter, and they don't use aluminum salts or parabens, which is really nice because I don't want to block my pores. I have a personal code called with Cindy. If you use it, you get 25% off all products, and this is available worldwide. I'll put a QR code in the corner, but you can also go to shopwildrefill.com/with Cindy. The 25% off is only available until the end of the month, so if you are interested, definitely jump on it. Now let's get into other wild things going on. Basically, the whole setup is that the author, Molly, is a stay-at-home mom of 2 sons. She and her husband, Stewart, live in a house that they own in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And if you're a New Yorker, you know that means they got some shmoney. It really starts to make sense about her being wealthy that she doesn't really talk about in the book, but we know that she is because only rich people with too much time on their hands would get involved in these shenanigans. The book starts off with how open marriage became introduced, with her meeting a man that's not her husband that she's attracted to. So basically, one night she was angry at her husband for coming home late, even though he said he would come home early. Even the way that she defines early hints to some of the dissatisfaction that she has about their dynamic. The day I meet him is like any other. That morning, Stewart tells me he'll be home early. That is early enough to find me awake, but not early enough to help put the kids to bed. Now it's 8:47 p.m. On what planet is this considered early? I hear Stu's key in the door and my body tenses. I won't give him a hello. My mouth won't do it. I need to get out, I say. I barely look at him for fear I'll scream, strike him, or worse. Where are you going? He asks, perplexed. To him, early nights means ordering dinner, watching TV together, hopefully sex. You and I, just from reading the beginning right away, We're clocking the dynamic immediately, right? Because that's going to be the whole foundation for the predicament that we're going to get into later on. So she goes for a walk to cool off, and then she runs into a friend who invites her to a bar where she meets Matt. Instantly, she's attracted to him. They have a good time talking and hanging out, and then she works up the courage to tell him to give her his number so that they can do this again and go out for drinks sometime. He says, I'll give you mine if you give me yours. Now, from what I know about straight people, this would be getting into dicey territory. Matt has a girlfriend, and he knows that Molly is married. She walks home with Matt's number written on a napkin in her pocket, and she's like, oh my God, I just exchanged numbers with a younger, unmarried man. I mean, he's in a relationship, but he is unmarried. And by younger, he is actually 8 years younger than her. And this is really new and exciting. And she even thinks that this was one of the best nights that she has had ever since her children were born. The thing about her kids is that she loves them, but it's also very draining to dedicate your whole life to them. She writes that despite how much she loves them, she will fantasize about running away from it all, which I'm sure is a common feeling for mothers to experience because being a mom is very hard, especially when she comes home and all the kids' clothes and toys are all over the floor just like they were earlier. So clearly her husband did not even help clean anything since he got home. She finds him in bed reading his magazine that she notes that she constantly finds on the floor and has to put on his chair. So these little details that she's mentioning about her home life and her marriage tell a very typical story of straight marriage. There's clearly an imbalance of labor going on at home, and there's pent-up frustration on the woman's part because of that. We have all seen this film before. So now I ask, what if we tried to solve this by opening up the marriage? Nothing could go wrong from there, right? Right. So they're, winding down in bed, and the husband, Stewart, asks her, who's Matt? Because someone with that name just sent you a text a few minutes ago saying he had a great time meeting you tonight and hopes that he can do it again soon. She explains that Matt is a friend's friend who was also at the bar with her. She forgot her wallet, so she just flirted her way into a couple of free drinks. Stewart says, it looks like you did an excellent job. So are you going to see him again? She's like, of course not. I'm married to you and we have kids. And Matt is definitely not interested. He sounds interested to me. Seeing his text made me pretty crazy, actually. I paused to consider this. Before we had kids, Stewart and I had sex at least 3 times a week, occasionally 3 times a day. Lately, we've been lucky to have sex twice a month, or rather, he's been lucky. As if conforming to every cliche I've heard about married sex, I'm too tired to be interested. I treat sex like one more wifely obligation, and Stu feels it. In response, he tries to mix it up to do new things, to kiss me or lick me in a new way, to hold me down or slide a finger into my asshole. But all I want is a quickie, a tried and true method for a fast-tracked mutual orgasm that will get me to sleep a few precious hours before I hear Nate's cries. Baby, I'm glad you're enjoying this, but it's not gonna happen. I disagree, he says. It'll happen if you want it to happen. So I've decided. Decided what? You can go out with him again, as long as you tell me everything. What a pleasant twist for Molly to face. Considering how she describes sex as an obligation for her to get over with, I'm glad that we have now upgraded from finger up the booty hole to getting permission to fuck another dude. Seriously, if everyone's happy with it, why not? So after that, she and Matt start texting each other. She's thinking about him a lot, and even after having sex with her husband, she will touch herself and imagine it's Matt, which will bring her to orgasm again. There's another part where she describes having sex with Stewart, and as he enters her, she imagines it's Matt. Stewart is also into this fantasy where they'll have sex and he will tell her to imagine what Matt's dick looks like and how his mouth would feel on her coochie, all that kind of jazz. He says he likes imagining her with other men because it turns him on. But she's realizing that what works for him doesn't really work for her, because it's not like this random guy's dick that she wants, it's his attention, like making dinner for her or admiring her. So there's already a disconnect between these two fantasies that they're having. He wants some freaky shit, she just wants human attention. Stewart creeps up behind me, grabs me around the middle, kisses my ear. Ready for your big date, he whispers. It's just drinks, I say. He lives with his girlfriend, remember? I know. He moves his kisses down the side of my neck. Can you feel how turned on I am? He pushes his hardness against my backside. Yes, I say, but I want to step away. I want to think about Matt, not Stewart. The reminder of Stewart's pleasure feels like an intrusion. This is the part where I'm like, why are you describing your husband like he is a creep? You don't even like him getting turned on by this. It makes me wonder how an open relationship is supposed to work when the whole basis of why you're seeing this other guy is because he fills this void in your life that you have had since motherhood. So it obviously is only about your desire, which is fine, but your husband jacking off in the kitchen just has to be something that you gotta tolerate because you were lucky enough to end up with a pervert husband who is chill with you dating another guy. Otherwise, your behavior in the book would have been considered cheating. right? So after a couple dates, Matt asks for Molly to come over to his place because his girlfriend is out of town. So after they arrive to his place, Molly texts Stewart asking if she should go back, to which he replies, go for it. She and Matt have sexy times, and then she continues to replay it in her mind the next day, and it is all good until soon after, when she's planning for a trip with her sons to see her parents, and Stewart is staying home because he has work. That night that she's packing for the trip, he approaches her and says, so, my ex-girlfriend invited me over the weekend while you guys are away. She's going through a rough divorce right now. She just wants to talk, but what if it weren't just talking? How would you feel about that? Molly's reaction is this. My heart squeezes into a tiny ball, wedging itself against my lungs and stopping my breath. Of all the girlfriends from Stu's past, Lena is one of a select few who broke up with him rather than the other way around. But Stewart remained friends with her. Lena was one of 5 ex-girlfriends who attended our wedding, which has to be some sort of record. I'm not exactly jealous of Lena. She's older than I am, has changed over the years into a matronly type. But I know that in a corner of Stu's brain, he wants to show Lena what she missed. And the thought of them together makes me feel like I've fallen to the bottom of a well. I'm not sure, I say, still not looking at him. I'm afraid I'll start to cry if I do. The tears have been close to the surface ever since my night with Matt, or more accurately, after a few days passed and I realized I might never see him again. His girlfriend is back and he's awash with guilt. I guess it's okay. I mean, it's not fair if I'm the only one who gets to, you know. Cool, says Stu, standing to go. I doubt anything's gonna happen. She's still pretty hung up on her husband, but I wanted to make sure you're all right with it, just in case. Uh-huh, I say. I get it. Stewart pauses in the doorway. Are you sure it's okay? Yup. I finally look up and give him a tight smile. Doesn't he know I'm lying? I'm just a little stressed about packing. I'll drive you to the airport in the morning, he says. I'm gonna miss you guys. Why would you miss us, I think? You're gonna have an empty house and a hot date with Lena. Are y'all thinking what I'm fucking thinking right now? Cause what I'm thinking is that it sounds very convenient that this guy has been totally chill with his wife dating another man, but the week that she and her kids are gonna be out of town, all of a sudden your ex-girlfriend wants to hang out. It just sounds very convenient. And like, obviously, if you ask your wife if she is chill with you hypothetically hooking up with your ex-girlfriend and take her response literally, instead of reading between the lines of her trying to suck the tears back into her eyeballs and not have a mental breakdown and keep her lips from quivering as she gives you a fake ass smile, at least you did your due diligence of checking in with her and getting her permission. But what I'm wondering is, if you couldn't join your wife and kids on this trip because you were too busy with work, why is your schedule all of a sudden free to see your ex-girlfriend? But also, she's not off the hook either, because if she loved their whole setup of her hooking up with another guy, but has such an emotional reaction of him seeing another girl and clearly not being okay with that, that doesn't sound like you wanted an open relationship to me. That sounds like, again, you wanted to hook up with another guy and you were lucky that your husband was chill with it, and now you're finding out why he was so chill with it. Also, while we are on the topic of her visiting her parents, it's revealed that a while back, she had learned that her mom had an affair with her dad with another guy that was 8 years younger than her, which is the same age difference between her and Matt. And one day when she told her mom that she knew about the affair and asked if dad knows, the mom replied, "It was your father's idea." We are not breaking generational curses over here in this family. And another random fact that I'm just gonna drop onto you, the guy that the mom was seeing also got her into a Japanese cult, which later the mom would invite Molly to join when she was 10 years old. All of that is for a future therapist to unpack, not a YouTuber on the couch. So we're gonna move on from here, because when she comes back from her trip with her family, she asks Stewart, "Did you sleep with her?" Stu drops his head along with the suitcase and lets out a deep sigh. He looks at me and I see the answer in his eyes before he says it. Yes. My legs give way. I crumple onto the floor next to the bed. I'm afraid I might vomit. "Molly," he begins, but I can hardly hear him. I'm at the bottom of the well now. From far away, words and phrases assemble themselves without sense or connection. She doesn't mean anything to me. You told me it was okay. Why are you reacting like this? Bitch, what do you mean, why is she reacting like this? Funny how the husband seems totally surprised by this. You told me it was okay. I mean, sure, you were breathing heavily and on the verge of a mental breakdown, but you said it was okay. How am I supposed to know you didn't actually want me to? It's not like we've been married for over 10 years and I know you intimately as a person. Later, he says, I don't know how to talk to you about this. I don't want to feel guilty about doing something you gave me permission to do. He's angry at me me, I realize he is angry at me. My head clouds over and the urge to vomit returns. I feel like this shit is low-key manipulative because again, they've been married for a very long time, obviously know each other well. With that track record, there is no way that he could not tell that she was upset when she half-heartedly said that it was fine. And she was like avoiding eye contact and trying not to cry. Someone could say that they're fine and obviously not be fine. And if he genuinely believed that it was okay, why was his reaction to being asked if he slept with his ex to drop his head and let out a deep sigh as if he was dreading being accountable for something? I don't know, I'm smelling some BS over here, but again, this is why I'm reading this book for the first time, right? I'm like, wait a minute, am I the only one who's thinking this or am I being gaslit right now? He picks up my hand, a limp dead thing, and holds it in his. I think we have a decision to make. Do you want to stop? Of course I do. We have to stop. I can't share Stewart. I can't share him with Lena, the woman who wishes she were his wife, the woman who has known him longer than I have, the woman whose children call him Uncle Stu. But at the same time, I can't not see Matt again. I still can't explain why. Maybe it's like Stewart said, about being seen with fresh eyes, about feeling not like a wife or a mom, but a desirable woman again. Maybe my feelings for Matt are nothing more than an addiction to how I feel when I'm with him, shiny and new. I don't know, I say to Stu. Do you want me to do a puppet show? I look up. Talk to me, he says in a goofy voice, his left hand speaking to his right. If I'm having a mental breakdown because my husband encouraged me to date another man so that later he could sleep with his ex-girlfriend and then he tries to make it up with me with a puppet show, I would cut off that hand with a kitchen knife so quick and there would be no more puppet show. Be so for real here. It's too exhausting. I decide to trust him because I don't see any other way. I throw my arms around his neck. I love you so much, I say. I love you too, baby, he answers. I will always love you. But let's try out a new rule for a while. I'm not gonna tell you any more about what I'm doing. But you, he says with a devilish smile, have to tell me everything. Well, I guess this is working out for one person, right? Remember, she just said okay, so that means it's totally okay. So over the next 4 years, Molly sleeps with Matt a handful of times whenever his girlfriend is out of town or when Stewart is at a conference and the kids are at summer camp. They fall in a pattern of being on and off again where after they have sex, Matt texts her to say he can't do this anymore because he feels guilty. She cries about it and has migraines. Then they start texting again a few months later and then they go through the same cycle. She notes that whenever she knows she will see Matt soon, she becomes more patient with the kids and more eager to have sex with Stewart. So I guess the lesson is being in a situationship and helping someone cheat is the key to being a patient mom and a better wife. Who would have known? At the same time, Stewart is seeing his ex-girlfriend and Molly knows this because he will have his hotel key cards in his pockets whenever she's doing his laundry. I think about all the years I've spent my nights alone with the kids, the dinners, the bedtimes, the dishes, the loneliness of doing it all by myself because Stu had to work. I check in with my sense of reality. Was he truly at the office all those times? Yes, I believe he was. After all, he's clearly a bad liar, one who can't manage to cover his tracks now. But another thought is rising within me, despite my efforts to tamp it down. All of those nights, he could have come home instead. He's blowing off work to be with her now, isn't he? I feel my jealousy mingle with the resentment I've kept at bay for years. Every time the feeling of being alone and the epic job of parenting crept along my temples, tightened my throat, bored its way into my bowels. But looking at my anger is like looking at the sun. It hurts to stare at it for too long, making a full examination impossible. And when I look away, everything is colored by fury. Now, correct me if I am wrong, but I feel like if you're in an open relationship and it's working out really well, nobody here would be experiencing this deep-seated anger and resentment. It kind of sounds like you're not okay with that. And because she is resentful of this man, it makes her more reckless with her hookup decisions. In all this time, I've never invited Matt to her house when the kids were home, until today. Maybe it's that Nate is 8 years old now and I feel confident he won't awaken during the night. Maybe finding the Hilton key prompts this reckless action, as if I've knocked back a potent jealousy anger cocktail, clouding my judgment. I find that my resentment is directed less at Lena and more at Stewart's freedom to do as he pleases, to go to hotels without worrying about details such as bedtimes or babysitters. Anyway, I rationalize, Daniel and Nate are upstairs asleep in their beds, and we're 2 floors away, down in the guest room, with a door that locks, an available escape route under the stoop. The levels of shit to unpack in this single paragraph is a lot. Where do I even begin? First of all, this lady has 3 floors in New York. She got money for realsies. And again, this will be relevant. Second of all, I'm not a mom, so maybe it's not my place to say, but I feel like bringing a man that you don't actually know that well into your home when your kids are there so that you can hook up with him, maybe not a good idea, especially when those kids have never met him before and only know about dad and mom. God forbid they accidentally see something and get traumatized and end up polyphobic later on. And third of all, the fact that the husband could hook up with other people without worrying about bedtimes or babysitters like the wife does just goes to show the unequal division of labor applies even when they sleep with other people. What do you mean that you were still stressed out over logistics when you freed up your marriage? Why can't she go to a hotel while he looks after the kids? Why can't he be responsible for their bedtime? Because he sure seems to be responsible for his ex-girlfriend's bedtime. Sorry, was that too far? I don't know. She said it was okay. Anyway, so after Molly and Matt have their sexy times, she tells him that she's gonna go check on the kids. Guess what? She didn't actually check on the kids at all. She just ran off to text Stewart. Because fuck them kids, that's why. The reason why she wanted to text Stewart is because he agreed so readily to stay late at the office, facilitating this wild scheme that I've started to feel guilty. Girl, he's probably fucking his ex right now. Let's not pretend he made some noble sacrifice for you by staying late in the office, okay? Anyway, so she texts him, Matt's still here, but don't worry, he has nothing on you as a lover. Yeah, don't worry, Stewart. He doesn't put his finger up my booty hole the way that you do. What happens next made me gasp out loud when I got to this part, because when she sends the text, she realizes too late that she accidentally sent it to Matt. Let's all process the horrors of this predicament. Yeah, the way I would die of embarrassment, those kids would be on their own because I would just go and start a new life. And you might as well put them in the foster system when I'm gone because you know Stewart ain't taking care of them. So she runs back downstairs, still naked, rifling through their clothes on the floor to see if she can find Matt's phone and delete it. But unfortunately, Matt had already put his pants on, which had his phone. And so he saw the text. He asked her, who was this text supposed to be for? It was for Stewart, I say, but I didn't mean it. You're an amazing lover. I was just trying to make him feel better. That's the least of my worries, Molly. He knows I'm here. This is where I am gagged for the second time because it turns out that Matt had no idea that he was involved in an open relationship. Now, obviously, he's okay with cheating on his girlfriend, but being part of an open relationship is where he draws the line because he leaves, and when she texts him the next morning, he texts back, I wish you all the best, Molly, but I'm done. Goodbye. Again, from my understanding of an open relationship, it works because everyone consents. None of this shit sounds consensual at all. Matt's girlfriend didn't consent for him to hook up with other women, which is why he constantly feels guilty about it, but then he does it anyway. So that's not an open relationship, that's just cheating. Molly doesn't actually like her husband sleeping with other women, so that's not being open either. That's just tolerating your husband sleeping around so that you can do it too. And Matt didn't consent to being the third guy in an open marriage, which means all this time when Molly was reporting back to Stewart about how their hookups went and Stewart was jacking off to that, Matt was an unwilling participant in their weird sexy times dynamic now. Really, the only person who's all fine and dandy here is Stewart on account of him being a fucking pervert. So after their breakup, Molly is a wreck. She sleepwalks through the rest of the day, she's full of shame, she's crying, and that night Stewart comes home and asks if she wants to talk about it. And she says she doesn't know if she can do this anymore, to which he replies, do you want me to stop seeing Lena? His words feel like a life-saving buoy. I rise up from the depths to grab hold of it. You would do that for me? I ask. Of course, he says. You're more important to me than anyone else in the world. Let's take a break until you're feeling better. The buoy deflates a bit and I sink below the surface once more. A break. Not the end. Of course, of course, of course. I'm not promising anything, I say to Stu, but I'll think about it. Just give me some time. For starters, I think I need to go back to therapy. Great idea, Stewart says, kissing me on the forehead, as long as I don't have to go. Yeah. Of course. Why would Stewart need to go to therapy? He's having a great time. He's having a blast. He's the most well-adjusted out of everyone here. He's not being cheated on. He's not crying. Like, he is totally fine with this setup. So later on, after Molly sees a therapist and does some self-reflection, she and Stewart decide to keep the marriage open. We don't know who initiated that conversation to decide that since it's not clear in the text, but she does say that she's determined to make open marriage work for her and to expand her sexual horizons and bring more adventure into her life. Now, personally, I feel like there's a difference between wanting an open marriage and wanting to make open marriage work. But again, that's not really distinguished in the text, so I can only infer from between the lines. She does tell Stewart that she doesn't want to keep their old arrangement where she tells him everything and he doesn't tell her anything because that just makes her invent things in her mind and get insecure. She also makes some new rules, which are these. Don't date an ex. Don't date anyone in the neighborhood. Don't date anyone too far away. Don't date someone you work with. No falling in love. Only go out on a date on a night when I also go out on a date. No going to anyone's house. No daytime dates. No sleeping over. No dating anyone you even might fall in love love with. No playing chess or seeing movies with anyone else. Those are our things. Don't date anyone too young. Don't show me pictures of her for a year. Tell me a little bit, but not too much. I'm serious. No falling in love. Only tell me the bad things. Don't text me right after a date because I'll be worried that you're still thinking about her. Never mind. Do text me so I know you're thinking about me. And remember, absolutely no falling in love. I do think this is a step in the right direction, like if they were going to do an open marriage, because if you're going to commit to this, you really need to communicate your boundaries early on and be aware of your insecurities. So good for her. I actually don't mind all the excessive roles that she has, because I do think that's part of like asserting your boundaries and making sure that like you're not involved in something that you don't want to be in. Unfortunately, we can only go so far from here because she ends up finding her dates through a website called Ashley Madison. Now, if you don't know what the site is, it is now defunct, but back in the day, it was a dating site specifically for people who were in marriages or in serious relationships and they wanted to hook up with other people and cheat on their partners. Most of the time, it was men who were in these relationships and they had to pay to use the site while women could sign up for free. And the tagline for their site is literally called "Life is short, have an affair." So it was a very skeezy website. I don't know why she decided to seek men who were already in marriages with partners who did not consent to their affairs. There's no solid explanation for this throughout the book or any self-reflection on continuing to participate in affairs rather than ethical non-monogamy. You can open your relationship without cheating. And that's what I mean about how this book lacks self-reflection. And I know last time I talked about this book in like a reading wrap-up, I got comments on my video saying that, well, maybe the book is showing that poly people or people in open relationships can be flawed and messy too. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. My problem isn't the morality of it. Like, I'm not going to drag an author for writing about doing things that aren't morally correct, but I am going to drag them a little if they write a memoir where they talk about those things very flippantly without any actual self-reflection or analysis or conclusion. That's not a good memoir to me, because the best kind of memoirs are not like morally pure ones. I'm not asking you to be like a superhero or like an amazing person. The good memoirs that I have read are the ones that show deep self-reflection on the author's part to take away from. And the stuff that I'm taking away from this book are things that I feel like she didn't intend for me to take away from. And again, contrary to popular belief, I don't care if someone that I'm reading about is problematic. I actually like it when people own up to their flaws and mistakes, because we all have them. But I'm not getting that from the text. Another example of lack of self-reflection is when she sets up her profile. I name myself Mercedes Invierno, an alter ego constructed from my 8th grade Spanish class handle and a spicy roll-off-the-tongue translation of my surname. The twin sins of cultural appropriation and misrepresenting myself to men with Latina fetishes hardly seem important in the world of Ashley Madison. Mercedes Invierno is a badass, straight A Molly's polar opposite. Within 24 hours of her debut on the online dating stage, Mercedes has gotten likes from over 100 nameless, nearly faceless men looking to hook up with a partner in crime, and she eats up the attention like a warm plate of churros. Yeah, so you guys know what I mean, right? Like, if we're gonna be randomly racist, but we're not gonna unpack why she felt the need to make an exotic Latina alter ego on a website for cheaters, why even mention it at all? It's weird because clearly she knows it's cultural appropriation, misrepresentation, fetishizing Latina women, because, you know, she pointed that out in one sentence, but then there's nothing else. Like, hello, girl, this plate of churros is cold and it's dry. What's going on? So she talks about her first hookup with a rando from this site, but he's flaccid after going inside her, and he's smaller than what she's used to. So, you know, it's pretty disappointing, but she tries to be agreeable. She gives him a BJ. She deals with a familiar sense of obligation again. You know, kind of like her obligation to have sex with Stewart, or her obligation with making an open marriage work because he likes it. But will we ever come to that conclusion? Who's to say? This experience makes her decide that she should date more than one person so that she doesn't get hung up with just one guy, and it'll be easier to stay emotionally detached, especially because that's what Stewart does, because he's dating 4 different women right now. So she sets up dates with different men. One of them is Leo, with a long distance girlfriend where they have like a don't ask, don't tell policy. She talks about how one time Leo fisted her. There's not really a point to why that detail had to be shared, but if I had to learn that, so do you. There's another guy named Laurent who is half French, half Argentine. He's married with 2 kids, and they also have a don't ask, don't tell agreement. They go to a show called Sleep No More, which is an elaborate interactive theater production. They go to a dark corner where he makes her give him a BJ, even though they are close to other audience members. So clearly, with the fisting and public BJs, she is truly living an adventure adventure. One day, Leo encourages her to get a butt plug, so she gets one from the store and tries it out and texts Stewart to come upstairs and see what she's wearing so that she can show off her new toy to him, and this somehow results in an argument. He looks at me strangely. I didn't know you were into that. Well, I'm still not sure if I am. It was Leo's idea, but I wanted to try it out at home first. I thought Laurent was the kinky one. They're both kind of kinky, I guess, I say, growing annoyed. But what do you think? I don't know, says Stewart, then pauses. Is this supposed to be some kind of invitation? That's what I was thinking when I texted you, but now it's starting to hurt, I say. When I see the confusion on his face, inarticulate anger rises within me. Why did you take so long to come upstairs? I shout. Why are you angry at me? He shouts back. You bought a sex toy to use with your boyfriend and you're yelling at me because I didn't come up fast enough to test drive it? The words come out before I have a chance to think about them. I'll bet you took your time because you're so tired from having sex with a million other women that you don't want to have sex with me. A million women, says Stewart, sitting down in the bed. I'm glad you think I'm such a Casanova, Molly, but that's a slight exaggeration, don't you think? It just seems so easy for you, I blurt, finally saying what I've been thinking for months. Mercedes Invierno wants to pretend that sex with multiple men is a dream come true, and straight A Molly is too competitive to admit that Stewart is winning the open marriage games. I lean against Stu, wearing my best pout. Stu puts an arm around me. You know why that is, right? I look at him sideways. Why? Because I date women, he says, and you date men. And as we both know, men suck. True, I say. I feel some of the tension leave my body. It's a relief to fall into arms that know exactly how I like to be held. Wow, that was a very surprising and sudden argument that seemed to have blown up out of nowhere. Surely it wasn't based on any deeper issues going on, and this arrangement still works. It's a good thing that Stewart is a feminist who says men suck. We love a woke man. No wonder he keeps on winning and swimming in coochie this whole book. Now, let's talk about the ongoing struggle of logistics when it comes to hooking up with these men. One time, she booked an office space for her to have sex with Laurent because she was getting tired of doing it in bar bathrooms, and he suggested doing it in one of the rooms at an office space that you can rent out, kind of like a WeWork. He asked her to book the room so his wife wouldn't see it on their credit card bill because she knows, but she doesn't want to know. Okay. So she booked a room with her credit card, and then later, after they do it, they get an email from the company saying that she was banned for life because she violated the terms of service prohibiting sexual activity in their spaces and will be charged an additional $200. So she told Stewart what happened, and he's like, why don't you guys just get a hotel? The reason why they can't is because Laurent is on his third marriage and spends a huge amount of money each month on alimony. I don't know why Molly herself doesn't book hotels because Stewart definitely pays for every hotel room and every dinner with his girlfriends, so clearly they have the money to be doing this. My assumption is either she feels like the man should be doing this, or maybe they have separate finances that they dip into their own hookups, and like maybe he has more than her. I don't know. It's not really explained in the text, and this may be a hot take, but I kind of feel like Stewart could help out with paying for her hotel since he got her into this situation in the first place, and clearly he doesn't help out with her household duties or taking care of the kids. Like, yeah, it would be kind of weird, but Stewart is already a weirdo, so... Anyway, another time she and Laurent are having sex in her cubicle that she also rented out at a shared workspace of another company after she got banned from like the previous one. They're doing it. She gets paranoid about people catching them, like so paranoid to the point where she can't even really enjoy it because she is just like afraid that somebody's gonna walk in and catch them. Laurent doesn't care though because he's just giving it to her the whole time and being loud about it. Afterward, when he finishes, they have this conversation. By the way, because the book writes him as having a weird accent, I too will be reading this in a weird accent. Molly, that was fantastique, pants Laurent. Shh, I say again weakly. I think they heard us. Laurent laughs without adjusting his volume. You Americans are too serious. What is the problem with the little lovemaking? Well, at least give me your condom so I can throw it away in the bathroom, I say. I don't want the cleaning staff to see it. Laurent looks at me with a sheepish smile. Oops, he says, raising his hand to his mouth with a faux gasp. It seems I forgot the condom. Pain is gathering around the crown of my head. This isn't the first time he's fucked me from behind without protection. The last time, he claimed his condom had fallen off, and now he's not even attempting to lie. It is okay, Molly, he says. I am very clean, yes? And you're on the pill, no? That's not the point, I say. Whatever, let me at least go pee so I don't end up with another UTI. I haven't told Stu about the no condom incident, rationalizing that we both get tested for STDs regularly, but it's hard to hide a urinary tract infection from him. In the 6 months I've been dating Laurent, I've already had 3. After the last one, Stu let out a resentful sigh. This guy is breaking all my toys, he complained. Still, that's as far as he's gone in terms of criticism. Girl, you have had 3 UTIs in 6 months? Get that nasty French dick out of you. You're not even having a good time at this point. And he is clearly violating your boundaries with pretending that he forgot a condom. He also triggers her insecurities because another time he asked her if she has ever considered waxing, and her body hair is something that she hates about herself. So because of that, she makes an appointment at a laser skincare, but when the workers look at her pubes, she finds out that it would require several expensive sessions to prune herself. And so she ends up buying a 20 session pack and now has to deal with an itchy crotch. She's also not having a great time with Leo because even though their sex is consensual, it's also more rough than she wants it to be. And after their sex is over, their pillow talk is cut short, even though it was something that they would typically linger over in the beginning. So she would basically go back home and feel like a piece of meat. So she tells to Mitchell, her therapist, I feel like shit. I thought freedom was supposed to be fun. He asked her to elaborate, and she says, it's more about being out of control. It's like I'm just reacting to what men want. I'm not asserting myself at all. And getting attention, having sex, it feels good, but it's so temporary. Then afterward, I feel like shit. Afterward, I feel empty. The act of saying the word brings the feeling to the surface. Empty. I feel empty. I reach for a tissue as the tears start to flow. This is basically the majority of the book. It's her trying to make open marriage work and constantly feeling like crap and crying. Girl, you are not having a good time. Not everyone can do hookups. It doesn't sound like you are into casual sex. Clearly, you want like more of an emotional connection, and that's fine. But you don't need to force yourself to do that just because you see that your husband is able to do it, and now you feel like you gotta compete against him and force yourself to be okay with it. Fortunately, after this, she decides not to see Leo again, and to really confirm that Leo doesn't actually give a shit, he stops texting her anyway. As for Laurent, they have now started doing it at a love hotel where you can do 2 or 3 hour bookings. It's a very sleazy environment where like the furniture is covered in easy to wipe plastic so that, you know, the bodily fluids can be wiped off easily. The housekeeping staff always looks depressed, and she doesn't even like make eye contact with them because she's so ashamed, and also, you know, she's too rich to like make eye contact with the poor. One night when they're charged a late fee, she asks if they can go somewhere else next time because the place is so skeezy. Laurent suggests going to a swingers club, but she remembers going to one with Stewart a long time ago and it was not her cup of tea. So she texts Laurent that group sex is not for her and she would rather go to a nice hotel. He sends back a single emoji, which is just the pouty face. And then he says, just one time, I promise. Sorry, Laurent, I've made my decision. No more sex clubs. So my pleasure is unimportant to you? He writes, another pouty face. Something inside me snaps. What the fuck? Everything I do is for your pleasure. Stop being such an immature asshole. My heart beats inside my throat as the 3 dots blink for eternity. Very well. Perhaps it is time I look for another button. This is in reference to their first date when she asked if his wife suspected anything and he avoided the question and instead he repeated what his mother said to him, which was, women are like buttons. If you lose one, you can always find another. Girl, it's time to fucking stand up, okay? At this point, she feels so nauseous because this guy is so sleazy. He always tries to pressure her into pleasing him. He doesn't use a condom when she wants to, and he lies about it. He's just a piece of shit. And so she tells him that they're done and blocks his number, and then she cries because this whole experience has been so miserable. 2 weeks later, she and Stewart see a couples therapist who asks them why they're here. We're here because I don't want to be in an open marriage anymore, but Stewart does. Stu sighs heavily and Evelyn nods towards him. You disagree with that, Stewart? It's not that I want to keep the marriage open regardless of how Molly feels. It's that I know she's going to change her mind. He turns and faces me. You're unhappy right now, I get it, but you have to give it time. You'll meet somebody new and you'll feel differently. Tears sting my eyes. We haven't even been here 5 minutes. I don't want somebody new, I say. I want you. Oh baby, says Stewart, you have me. You'll always have me. It doesn't feel that way. I feel so alone. You're not alone, Molly, he shouts exasperated. I'm here next to you right now. Once again, I am not liking Stewart. Just because you are physically sitting next to your wife in that specific moment doesn't mean that she can't feel alone when you're constantly busy with work or fucking your ex-girlfriend or fucking other girlfriends or not contributing to the house or taking care of the kids or acting frustrated and shouting at her when she literally says that she does not want to be in an open marriage. This is the crux of it. I'm reading this book where she is talking about her experience with open marriage and how ultimately it worked out for her. Girl, you have said straight up to your husband that you did not want this and you're crying about it and he's shouting at you because he's like, that's not true, you do want it. Hello? The whole point of being in an open relationship is that it requires consent from everyone involved, being chill with your partner, having other partners, and actually enjoying your other relationships. Where in this whole book have we seen any of those things? Hello? The light is coming from inside the apartment, and still I cannot see any of those things being featured. I'm also calling BS at Stewart saying that it's not that he wanted to keep the marriage open regardless of how Molly feels. He just knows that she's going to change her mind. What are you, a fortune teller? Who knows someone more, themselves or the guy who seemed to be oblivious that his wife wasn't okay with him sleeping with an ex? Do you know that she's going to change her mind, or do you know that you're going to convince her to change her mind because of her pattern of people pleasing and obligation? It's really hard to tell. So counselor asks Molly, what do you need to feel less alone? She says, I need to have more fun with Stewart. We used to have so much fun. Okay, and what would having fun with Stewart look like? What would the two of you do? Don't tell me, tell Stewart. I turn to face him. I want you to take me to breakfast. Last week you took Beth out for breakfast, and it hurt my feelings because you and I never do that anymore, and I love breakfast. Stewart laughs. You certainly do, he says, reaching for my hand. I will absolutely take you out for breakfast this week. You will? I say, brightening. Of course, he answers. Pick a day where you don't have any workshops or meetings, and we'll go while the kids are at school. Is that it? My shoulders slump as I consider his words. Well, now I feel like you're just checking an item off a list. I want you to want to go to breakfast with me and for it to be your idea. Stu drops my hand. He throws himself backward against the couch with enough force that I bounce a little. I can't win, he shouts, addressing Evelyn now. No matter what I do, she gets upset. Okay, let's try something else, says Evelyn. We're gonna do a listening exercise. Stewart, you're gonna tell Molly why you feel like you can't win. Molly, you're gonna repeat back to Stewart everything he says to you. You don't have to repeat his words verbatim, but you can't editorialize or present your own position. I'll be here to help. Go ahead, Stu. Look at Molly. Start with what you just said. I feel like I can't win. No matter what I do, you get upset. So then he repeats that, and then she repeats that back, and then Evelyn says, did she get that right, Stewart? He says, yep. Okay, let's keep going. What else? You want me to read your mind, Stu says, and if I don't guess what you're thinking, you're disappointed in me. I want you to read my mind, I say, and if you can't guess what I'm thinking, I act like I'm disappointed in you. Right, says Stewart. I watch the muscles in his face relax. I'm feeling more relaxed too. How does this feel, Stewart? Asks Evelyn, to have Molly really hear what you're saying. It feels good. It's like having my own little parrot. I hit him lightly on the arm, and he squeezes my knee. Hope starts to rise within me again. Obviously, I am a third-party observer, and I'm only hearing Molly's account about this whole thing, but I feel like knowing your wife feels alone and isn't happy that you're dating other women is pretty obvious on account of her being quite emotional throughout this book. Just because she half-heartedly agrees to something or is trying to make something work doesn't mean that she's actually happy with it. It doesn't take a mind reader to understand that, especially when you have been married for 16 years and should know the other person intimately. He says he feels like he can't win because no matter what he does, she gets upset. Well, what if he didn't see other women and they stopped having an open relationship? Seems like that's something he could do. Seems like that would improve her mood. Why are we acting like this is an impossible situation? Even if he is convinced that's not the solution, you guys could just try it out and see if it improves and just figure it out from there if it works or if it doesn't work. God forbid you only spend time with your wife for a couple of weeks. I don't know why we're acting like we have to make open marriage work and that's the only dynamic we can operate under. It's clearly not working out. Speaking of trying something different, I'm gonna wait till the light goes away and I will continue from here. Okay, so after the therapy session, Molly says that she will delete her account on Ashley Madison. Yay! And then she'll start a new account on OkCupid to try to make marriage work as long as Stewart agrees to keep seeing the marriage counselor with her. I guess that's better. But her motivation to switch to OkCupid doesn't even have anything to do with not wanting to cheat anymore or realizing that she was going through a pattern of like sleazy men that are cheating on their wives and that's why her experiences were so awful. Like there was no reflection on that. She literally just thought about signing up for OkCupid because Stewart is on that site and it's working for him, so she should be on it too. The one upside is that you can at least set your profile on OkCupid to say non-monogamous. So at least we've crossed from unethical to ethical. What's not ethical is how much damn money she continues to spend to make this work though, because she has to buy a premium membership in order to read the messages in her inbox. Then she meets up with a guy named Liam. His mother was poly and he was raised in a poly commune. He says he's a solo poly, which means that he is his own primary relationship. So he doesn't intend to get married or for his romantic relationships to last long. Like he doesn't have those expectations, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't take his relationship seriously. He's like the only dude in this whole book that really seems seems the most well-adjusted and knows like exactly what he wants and what he's all about. So he teaches Molly more about what polyamory is like. And one night she brings it up to Stewart about what she's learning. He replies that he is also dating someone who's teaching him the same concepts. And that makes Molly feel jealous again. He also reveals that he went on a date with a woman named Tinkerbell on OkCupid. This video is already long, so we don't even have time to make fun of this. It turns out that Tinkerbell was hosting a sex party and asked him to be her date, so he went. And even though he did it with Tinkerbell, he realized that he wasn't actually attracted to her because when he saw her naked for the first time, she had tattoos all over her back and piercings on her nipples. And he says that he's not into that stuff. Never in my life have I ever been so relieved to be covered in tattoos as when I read this part in the book. Matter of fact, let me book a couple more sessions just so that I can make sure I am never this man's type. Molly actually ends up feeling gratitude listening to this though, because he's only sharing negative parts of the experience. But like a fool, she asks if there was anything he liked about the party, to which he says, of course, it was like cool to see people have sex in front of him. It was like having a front row seat to an adult film, if you know what I mean. She doesn't say anything back to that, and she has to like blink back her tears again because this triggers her fears that she doesn't fulfill all of Stewart's needs. What does it matter if Stu gets some of his needs met elsewhere, I think? Behind this thought is a new feeling too, a tingling of freedom. If I'm no longer Stu's only sex partner, then there's no guilt in saying no to things I don't want to do. This is a good thing, right? Win-win. So why do I still feel jealous? Why is this feeling of compersion so elusive? The next paragraph shows that they're in the middle of watching a play that her kids are doing right now at school. And when they're watching their kid, Stewart grabs her hand, kisses it, and holds it tight. He leans over and whispers, "I love you." And I realize that our marriage is safe. Never mind that I won't go to a sex party with him. There is nothing that could bond me to Stewart more than our common love objects, our children. I mean, I guess. I don't know if you can really rely on children to keep a marriage together with that way of thinking, but sure. To give them the benefit of the doubt, I do think the sentiment that opening a relationship allows you to have your needs met makes sense. And I also believe that Stewart does genuinely love his wife and his family, and he and Molly will always be their primary relationship. So I will concede a little bit, but there's just so many other things going on that really make me side-eye. So she decides that the group parties that poly people have are not for her, and instead of dating a poly professor and basically the only well-adjusted guy that knows what he wants, she's gonna go ahead and be in an open relationship with another guy who is new to this kind of thing and is learning it alongside with her. So she meets a German guy on OkCupid named Carl, whose relationship status is ethically non-monogamous and partnered with a fiance. That fiance's name is Martina, and the arrangement was actually her idea because she is bi and wants female intimacy. So Molly goes on a date with Carl and they end up having a great time. They have an amazing kiss. They talk about deep and vulnerable stuff. She really feels a connection. Like she even thinks that she could start falling for him, which is, you know, against the rules that they set up with each other. And she also doesn't want to admit to Stewart that her interest in keeping their marriage open, it really is dependent on who she's dating at the moment. Because what if it doesn't work out with Carl? And then she wants to close the marriage after all. And then she doesn't have a leg to stand on when Stewart reassures her that she'll change her mind again. So she's definitely like swimming with a lot of hypothetical scenarios in her mind. But again, I feel like if you have to mentally prepare your present actions so that you can further defend yourself in the future when your husband tries to convince you to stay in an open marriage, what does that say about the dynamic that you're in? But for now, she's having a great time with Carl. They continue to go on dates and he just seems like a much better dude overall. They connect a lot better. They share deep stuff about their lives to each other. He's a very giving partner in the bedroom. One time she visits his place, which is super nice and clean. They have great sex, and then afterward, when she's like basking in the glow of it all, she looks up and there's a giant photograph of a naked woman just hanging above the bed. She asks Carl, "Who is that?" And he says, "That is Martina. Isn't she beautiful?" This gives her a mixture of feelings because she's always clung to her role as Stewart's primary partner, but now that she is on the other end of being a secondary partner with Carl, this gives her some feelings of jealousy. Later on, when she goes home, Carl sends her a text checking in on her, which is very nice, especially considering the fact that this is the first time any of her hookups have done so. Really goes to show that maybe men who don't cheat on their partners tend to be more respectful than men who do. Who would have thought? He also says that Martina is glad he didn't change the sheets after Molly left because Martina likes the smell of her. And she's like, "Oh, that's nice." Stewart is also home after a date with a woman who is in an open marriage with 3 kids, and before that, he's been dating a string of single single women. He actually ended things with the last one when she asked if he would ever divorce his wife, and he told her there was no chance of that, and she broke into tears. And when he updated Molly about that, he was like, I thought you'd like that. And it's true, Molly does. She feels affirmed by that. So how was your date with Carl? He asks, his voice lowering suggestively. I know he wants to hear about the sex, but that's not what I want to talk about. For one, it feels too special, too precious. I don't want to cheapen it by describing it in terms that will turn Stewart on. I find it interesting how she doesn't like sharing her intimacy and relationships with other men with her husband to get turned on to. Because obviously for queer relationships, there's more sharing between the primary partners with that third person, and they like how that adds more flavor to their dynamic. But Molly is saying that if she shares her relationships to Stewart for him to get turned on, it cheapens it, which I understand because apparently he is a horn dog for anything. But maybe this would be a good thing to communicate with your husband, that you're not just seeing other people for him to get his rocks off to, because clearly there are different motivations going on for you guys to open your relationship. And maybe that's why there is so much friction in the first place every time you argue about it. But there are more pressing concerns at stake here because she is trying to get his advice about how to handle Martina. But when she describes the situation, he just gets horny and it's like, ooh, tell me more. And she's like, babe, that's not the point. Don't you think that's a little weird, this whole thing? It makes me kind of uncomfortable. Martina's girlfriend, I think her name is Rebecca, is also engaged to a man. And Carl told me Martina is the first woman Rebecca ever slept with. He says Martina likes straight chicks. Stu laughs. Well, they must not be that straight if they're having sex with her. Exactly, I say. Don't you think that's weird? Not at all, says Stu. Granted, I'm not a bisexual woman, but it's a pretty popular male fantasy to get a lesbian to turn straight. Maybe she's into the same sort of thing, but reverse. That's her kink. Think of it this way. Look at how much we're learning about other people. It's like we have this intimate window into the lives of people we might otherwise never even meet. I think it's kind of cool. It is pretty crazy how much I already know about Martina and how much she probably knows about me. Stu laughs. Kiwi already thinks that you're amazing too, but that's because I only tell her the good stuff. He winks at me. Kiwi? The woman I went out with tonight, the one from New Jersey who's in an open marriage. She's originally from New Zealand, so that's my nickname for her. A knot starts to twist in my stomach. A nickname? Stewart has a million nicknames for me. Vasco da Gama when I got lost, Mario Andretti when I get a speeding ticket, the ever-favorite suitcase, but a nickname for another woman, and one that conjures up an unbearably cute accent? I try to shove my jealousy to the side and probe the other part of what Stewart said, the part that should make me feel good. Girl, I don't know what's worse. The fact that you keep on letting your husband date other women when you clearly have a problem with it to the point where you get bothered every time he brings them up, or the fact that all the women that he dates have stupid ass nicknames like Kiwi and Tinkerbell. So after that, she decides to go to OkCupid for a quick fling to cure her growing attachment of Carl and distract her from obsessing over Stewart's dating life, because obviously that is a great reason to get into a fling, to distract yourself from your actual problems. She meets up with a guy named Jay, who is also in a personal relationship, and this helps her set a personal record of dating someone who is 14 years younger than her. Never mind the fact that this may be an attempt to level the playing field, because she had also found out that Stewart is dating Kiwi, who is 13 younger than him, which means that she is 8 years younger than Molly. But Stewart says that Kiwi is already married with 3 kids, so that balances out. She's lived more than an average 35-year-old. And anyway, it's half plus 7, right? He says, referring to her agreed upon formula for determining if a potential partner is too young. According to this rule, Stewart at 48 is allowed to date 31-year-olds. At 43, I can dip down to 28 and a half. Jay is a ripe old 29. I don't really care about the age gaps going on right here. Like, frankly, this is the least of my concerns right now with this whole situation. So she comes over to Jay's place the same night that Carl invites her to hang out. And so she has to decline because she's already in the middle of a date with Jay. But then she soon reconsiders it when she and Jay have very bad sex. Basically, he pounces on her coochie in a way that she describes to be like a dog with a chew toy, because he's eating her out using more teeth than tongue. And when he actually penetrates her, it does not feel good because he is too big, and it feels like she is at the gynecologist and they're using one of those tools to slam against her cervix. She ends up faking her pleasure to get it over with, and then later on her way home, she sees that Carl sent her a bunch of texts. The first one says, Molly, I hope you're having a nice date. And then the second one says, that was a lie. I hope the date is terrible. I'm feeling very jealous, although I have no right to be. And then the third one says, Martina thinks I should stop texting and let you have your freedom, but I can't help myself. I don't don't know what is wrong with me. I'm sorry. So she calls him and he says, please forgive all of the texts. I am a mess. She's like, no, it's okay. I wanted to tell you how awful my date was and I was thinking about you. And this makes Carl feel very relieved. And he's like, listen, I know you're free to date whoever you like, but for myself, I'm going to disable my OkCupid account and I would like to only date you. Is that okay? And she says, actually, I would like to do the same thing. So I'm also going to disable my account tonight too. And that is how they become exclusive with one another. Plus their other partners. I am so relieved we talked. I thought I might die of jealousy tonight. Martina tried to help, but I pouted all evening. It was very bad. But this can't be the first time you felt this way, I say. Don't you get jealous when Martina is out with somebody else? With Martina, it's easy, he responds. She only dates women, and I like to imagine two women together. He falls into a whisper. For example, if I knew that you were out with Martina, I would not be jealous at all. Right. Because women in relationships with other women are not a threat at all and should not be taken seriously as a straight relationship. And if anything, they benefit the guy with making him more turned on. Tale as old as time. So now that they're exclusively secondary partners, she really appreciates how much of a gentle lover he is, especially in comparison to Stewart, who often is too vulgar in the bedroom, but claims that he can't help himself. Stu has explained to me more than once that to stay hard for an hour, sometimes longer, he must conjure the self-restraint of a machine. This sometimes leads to the vocal explosion of pent-up energy, often in the form of words like cunt and whore. I swear I'm not doing it on purpose. It just kind of comes out. When I complain, it takes him out of the moment. Over time, we've arrived at a compromise, less than satisfactory for both of us. He will try his best not to scream cunt during sex, and I will do my best to ignore him if he does. Girl. I feel like whenever she brings up these things, it's to show the benefits of an open relationship, because if your partner doesn't satisfy you in some way or does something that you don't like, you have other partners to turn to for that. But girl, there is a deeper rooted problem going on and you are not getting it. Denial is a river in Egypt and your husband is a pervert. So later on, when they see the couples counselor, they tell her that they have been doing great. But Stewart slightly disagrees. He says it's more like he's doing well and Molly is doing well, but they're not doing well like as a couple. And the reason for that is because he feels like Molly is always running over to Carl's apartment, and when she's not there, she's texting him or talking about him, and it feels like she's not really present with Stewart anymore. Wow, really? Kind of like being with a partner who's not present and taking care of the house or the kids, or listening to you crying and having a mental breakdown when you go through terrible hookups, right? Kind of like being with a partner who's not present because they're too busy fucking other people named Tinkerbell and Kiwi and ignoring you clearly being upset about it, right? If only we knew how Stewart felt. Stewart also brings up the other night when they were having dinner at home, and when he went to the kitchen to get a drink, he saw her phone where she had texted Carl saying, I wish I could escape and come over right now. And that word escape really bothered him. And Molly says that she didn't mean she wanted to escape from him. It's more like wanting to escape from her role as a wife and mother. And he's like, well, it hurt. It hurt a lot. The counselor looks at Stewart with sympathy, and Molly just looks at the both of them and is like, wait a minute, this is BS. She says, I know it hurts. You've been escaping from us for years. It's like you have some sort of allergy to domesticity. You've never wanted to be home, and I was the one for years and years and years who did all the bedtimes and school pickups and the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and shuttling the kids to birthday parties and after school activities and doctor's appointments, and you said you had to work. But now you seem to have time for other women, and one woman in particular. So yeah, maybe it's my turn for an escape. Finally, for the first time, we see a bitch stand the fuck up. This is the root of everything. It's not you trying to be more adventurous or opening the relationship. It is your resentment towards your husband not knowing how to pick up a fucking mop and do one single chore. And all Stewart has to say in response is this: I feel like I can never please you for a long time now. Ever since Daniel was born, everything I do is wrong. Evelyn questions Stewart about the weeks following Daniel's birth when Stewart's father got sick with pneumonia and died within a matter of days. I listen as he untangles the threads of stressors during the months that followed. We had a new baby and this was challenging enough. On top of it, Stewart was grieving, depressed. He guessed that I didn't have enough energy to take care of both Daniel's and his needs, so I dedicated myself to Daniel's. And he's right. I figured the best thing I could do for Stewart was to take on as much of the parenting load as I possibly could, and I did. So she starts to think, wow, all this time that I've been resentful of my husband, I was actually the one being too controlling. I was being demanding with the right way to feed and diaper and bathe our son, and I made him feel like he wasn't doing enough because I took over every domestic and parenting task. I I am a third-party observer while reading this book. I do not know how their dynamic actually is. However, it is very common for women to take on all the work in the household because the husband doesn't know how to do it correctly, so she might as well do it herself. Weaponized incompetence is a very real thing. And I feel like in many cases like that, it's less about her being controlling and him just really not stepping the fuck up. I totally get how when you're grieving, you're not going to be able to do the chores, but he has still been avoiding all of the chores years after processing his father's death. In the beginning of the book, when she left the house because she was pissed off at him and then later comes back home and all of the kids' clothes and toys are there on the floor, it would not have been hard for him to just simply pick up their crap. Instead, he literally just went straight for the bedroom and started reading his magazines. Clearly, he is functional enough to go to work all the time and take care of his job. Somehow, he's not functional with picking up a toy every once in a while. I call BS on that. To complain that everything that you do is wrong implies that you have been doing something. Where in this book have we ever seen you do a single chore or take care of your kids? In a later chapter, Molly runs into Carl and Martina and finally meets the other woman / Carl's primary partner for the first time. Afterward, Carl texts her saying Martina is mad at him because he didn't tell her how hot Molly was, and she was unprepared for that, which is like, okay, weird. He also says Martina wants the three of them to get together this week, so Molly agrees to meet up with them at a bar. But when they are there, she gets really weird vibes from Martina because whenever Carl is gone, Martina will revert back to her resting bitch face, but she only lightens up when you compliment her or you make fun of Carl. She seems to be really into making fun of Carl's like height, him not making enough money, his looks, him being German and therefore not having great English. That's like where she really lights up and has an engaging conversation with Molly. And also when they do trivia night at the bar, Molly knows more answers than Martina, but then she notices later that Martina is getting irritated. Molly now has to like flatter her and say things like, oh, I only know these questions because I'm so old. But the hangout still feels awkward and Martina does not seem to be in a great mood. And worst of all, when it's time for them to go, Carl tells Martina that he's going to walk Molly home. And Molly's like, oh no, it's fine. I can get home on my own. But Martina just has a tight smile and is like, no, he'll walk you. That's clearly what he wants to do. And then she turns around and just walks away. So Carl runs after to talk to his fiance. Molly starts spiraling, thinking about what they could be talking about and worrying that Martina will make Carl not see her anymore. But then Carl comes back and says, everything is fine. Molly doesn't believe it. So Carl's like, okay, the truth is she's jealous, not that I'm with you, but that you're with me. But I think she might feel better if we could all sleep together, but only if you want to, no pressure. But the thing is, Molly has already done a threesome a long time ago with Stewart. Of course, the threesome was with him and another woman. And of course, that woman was his ex-girlfriend, whose nickname is also Wild Wendy. And of course, Molly didn't like the experience. She wasn't into the other woman and she actually felt turned off. The straightness in her was just too strong. But then she thinks, well, maybe Carl and Martina will be different. They did say that Martina likes straight women, so maybe she can like turn me or something. I don't know. The next day, she decides to move forward with the threesome, just wants to try it out, not because she wants to, because the book literally says, instead of admitting the truth that I don't want to have a threesome with Carl and Martina, that I'm only doing this because it feels like a requirement for dating Carl at all, I put on the sunniest smile I can muster and tell Stu the same lie I'm telling myself. Girl, have we not been doing this same song and dance this entire book? How is it that you can recognize that this is what's going on with this threesome that you signed up for, but not what's going on with your original twosome with Stewart? Anyway, so she goes over to their place to do the menage a trois, and she has to tell herself that there is nothing to fear because her body is not her. She controls her body, but the true her is safely tucked away inside. And every move that she makes feels easier when she views it not with her eyes, but through a wide angle lens that is hovering above this scene. And I'm like, girl, why are you disassociating to cope with this threesome that you don't even want? She's literally picturing the scene like she's a director and she has to say all these lines to get the rehearsal right. Like she literally describes it as a rehearsal. So after they finish the threesome, she sits up hoping she looks sufficiently disheveled and it's like, oh my God, that was amazing, Martina. Anyway, Stewart is expecting me soon, so I gotta go. I promised I wouldn't stay out late so he doesn't get too jealous. Anyway, bye guys, this was fun, see you later, because she already knew she would want an excuse to get out of there. The next day, she receives a bunch of texts from Carl saying that they had a great time last night and it was so hot to see her and Martina together. Martina says that he cannot change the sheets because she's gonna be all over that like a drug-sniffing dog. And then Martina even texts her because apparently she asked Carl for Molly's number and he just went ahead and gave it to her. And she texts Molly saying, Carl just fucked me so well, but all I could think about was you. This only makes Molly feel dread and panic because she knows she has to cut Martina off and do it very carefully. So she texts back saying, oh, hi, I've been thinking about you last night too. Thanks so much for inviting me, sleep well. And then for the following weeks, she obsesses over the drama of Carl and Martina as if it is the only storyline in her life. She feels like this is a soap opera of her own making and that she's helpless to find her way out of it. This is truly the type of behavior of someone who does not have to worry about a job. So one morning, she tells Stewart, so according to Carl, she understands that he and I need to have our own dates, but she wants to watch us have sex sometimes. I'm not comfortable with that being the new normal though. So I suggested that if I want her to come in, we'll leave the bedroom door open, but otherwise we'll leave it closed. And she freaked out. She told him she's never felt so disrespected in her life. Carl says not to worry about it, but I have no idea how to placate her. It feels impossible. Stewart interrupts my monologue with an audible exhalation. I'm going out with Kiwi tonight, okay? I pause. His flat statement hits me like a fall onto pavement. Shock protects me from hurt, at least for a few moments. I thought you and I were hanging out tonight. Molly, I need a break. He turns away from me. If I had to hear one more word about Kmart, I'm going to lose my shit. Damn, what happened to you not wanting to hear about everything going on? Is Carl not enough to jack off to now? Now that we're getting into emotional drama and your wife being indecisive as hell, that shit's getting too annoying for you? I mean, valid, but still, this is what you signed up for, knowing your wife is very neurotic like that. But then she thinks, oh man, he's right. Our time together has been poisoned. But then she's also heard that Stewart needs a break from her. But then the bigger concern, way above any of that is present in her mind first and foremost, is that she thinks she may have fallen in love with Carl and now she's going to lose him. A few nights later, Stewart tells Molly that Carl seems to be back on OkCupid because he just liked Kiwi's profile. Stewart shows Molly a screenshot that Kiwi sent him, and when Molly sees it, she has another mental breakdown. She's like, oh my god, Carl lied to me. He's already looking for his next girlfriend to replace me, and fucking Kiwi is the one who attracted his attention. She's now gonna take both my husband and my boyfriend, and I'm not gonna have anything. Molly literally rolls off the bed, lies on the floor, and cries violently. She literally describes it as wailing so hard that she can barely speak. And between her sobbing, she asks Stewart, why are you telling me this? Stewart is still on the bed and he peers down at me at the floor, unsure of how to deal with the wild animal before him. A wild, wounded animal is exactly what I feel myself to be, something unwieldy but vulnerable. Perhaps a baby hippo huddled on the floor by the bed. Because I don't want you to get hurt, he says. I'm trying to protect you. And Kiwi isn't going out with him or anything. She just thought you should know he's lying to you. If you want to protect me, I scream, don't keep making me do this. Stop dating Kiwi and whoever else and just be with me. Don't you understand? I can't do this anymore. He reaches for me, but I won't let him touch me. I hold my hands over my ears like a child locked in a tantrum. I won't let him speak to me or comfort me, and I stay balled up on the floor in a rigid knot of pain. I wait until I hear Stu snoring before I crawl into bed, spent, still careful not to let his body touch mine. Girl, you are on the floor, screaming, crying, shitting, vomiting. You are literally telling him, don't keep making me do this. Just be with me. You do not want to do this shit. You are having multiple breakdowns, multiple migraines, multiple unpleasant experiences. You literally admit that Stewart is making you do this and you don't actually want to do this and you only want to be with him, but you guys are still opening the relationship anyway. Either give this man the electric chair or check yourself into a mental asylum. The next morning, she wakes up to an empty bedroom because Stewart has left for work early and she assumes that it is to avoid her. Another example of what a great supportive husband he is. You know, after he just fell asleep while she was fucking crying on the floor last night. So she texts Carl telling him that she knows he reactivated his OkCupid profile and liked Stewart's girlfriend. And he replies back saying, Martina must have done that. You know she likes straight women. He just let her go into the account as himself. She can tell and we can all tell that this is BS. Later on, she goes to therapy to update Mitchell what has been going on. Her migraines have persisted, she's in a lot of emotional pain, and he points out that the way she describes dealing with a threesome is the same pattern as her people-pleasing tendencies. Yeah, no shit. We saw that coming from like a mile away. Why do I keep doing this? I say, my voice emerging louder than intended. Why can't I stop this stupid pleasing everyone bullshit? I'm so fucking sick of myself. I'm screaming now, screaming from a place of anguish I cannot locate. And then she starts to calm down and a memory starts to emerge. The therapist asks her, what's coming up for you right now? And she says, I'm thinking of something my mom said when I first started dating Stewart. She asked me, how do you feel about yourself when you're with him? It was like a litmus test or something. I told her Stewart made me feel better about myself than anyone I'd ever known. I mean, William made me feel like shit, and Stu made me realize how love is supposed to feel. But the truth is, I've never felt good about myself, no matter who I'm with. The truth is, I feel like shit about myself all the time. The therapist tells her, what I'm hearing from you right now is that throughout your life, you've been looking outside of yourself, to your parents, to your kids, to Stewart, to Carl, for the validation and love you crave. But Molly, you can't receive anyone else's love until you love yourself. Nobody else, not your mother, not your children, not your husband, not your lovers, will ever be able to fix this. Only you have the power to repair this hole. I slightly disagree that no one can love you until you love yourself, because that's like a lifetime journey. But I agree with everything else. She really does need to repair this hole, and not just the booty hole from all the times her perfect husband stuck a finger up in there. The metaphorical hole in herself. Let's put an end to this madness, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you should take all the money you've been spending on hotels and babysitters and dating apps and donate it to charity or something. So after therapy, she texts Carl asking if they can talk, and he doesn't write back. He ends up ghosting her. So now she has to spend this time feeling like she's grieving over someone who is dead. But she knows that he's alive because she sees pictures of Martina and Carl's wedding later on. And this makes her spiral even more about how she was a prop in Carl's marriage, just like how Matt was a prop in her marriage. Then for the first time in the book, we finally see her start to do other activities other than crying and screaming over shitty men. She takes a boxing class. She goes to a songwriting workshop with her mom. It's a writing retreat. They have a heart-to-heart. Her mom encourages her to see everything as an opportunity for learning and growth. She's like, damn, you're right. So later on in the next chapter, she tells her therapist she's ready to date again. I guess all it takes to heal the scars of opening your relationship and make you ready to open it again is to take a couple of music and boxing classes, and then you're good to go. There is a time where she is taking a break from dating though, and during this time, there is a week where she and Stewart go hiking together, and he is the type of guy who will hike very briskly while his wife is getting left behind, and she has a shout after him to wait for her. And then this conversation happens. She asks him how did he pick this trail, and he says, Kiwi came here last year. She and Evan take the kids hiking all the time. She said it's a good warm-up to do on day one. My headache flares for a moment as I digest these details. Her kids did this trail? Isn't the youngest like 5 years old? Yeah, he says, laughing. They're a pretty outdoorsy family. It must be those New Zealand genes. I guess so, I say, forcing a laugh as well. Why does this information bother me so much? Maybe it makes me feel like a terrible mother. I'm raising my kids in a concrete jungle and I let them play video games for hours on end. On top of this, I'm angry at myself. How has my jealousy managed to barge in on this moment of union with nature's majesty? What the fuck happened to my fixed bucket? As I wrestle with myself, Stewart mistakes my silence for an invitation to keep talking. Did I ever tell you about the time Kiwi punched Evan in the face? He asked, still laughing to himself. My body tenses, but I don't speak. It was a few years ago, back when they first opened their marriage. Kiwi had a bunch of dates before Evan found anyone he liked. So he finally goes on a date with another woman with Kiwi's full blessing, and as soon as he gets back home, she punches him with a closed fist. She almost broke his nose. I stop so suddenly that Stewart steps on the back of my shoe. I turn around, tempted to punch him in the face as well. Why the hell are you telling me this? I spit. Why is Kiwi's anger so goddamn amusing, and my anger is something I'm never supposed to talk about? Stewart's body goes slack. We talk about your anger all the time, Molly. In fact, I can't remember last time we had a conversation where you weren't angry, or I wasn't worried that I'd make you angry. And the second I let my guard down, he cuts himself off and starts marching ahead of me up the trail. So that's it? I shout after him. We're done talking, and you're gonna just leave me alone in the woods? Yes, I'm fucking done, he shouts. I think you want to be angry at me. Every conversation with you is a minefield. It's like you're waiting for me to step into some taboo topic, except I never know what's going to trigger the explosion. I'm exhausted, Molly. I can't do this anymore. So you want to close the marriage, I say, setting my next trap. You know that's not what I want, he says. I silently celebrate this victory. And maybe it's what you want today. today, but admit it, if Carl were still in the picture, we wouldn't be having this discussion. And if you meet someone new tomorrow, we won't be having it then either. This is what I don't understand. He keeps on bringing up that her wanting to open or close the marriage is dependent on whether she likes her boyfriend at the time, and that's why they shouldn't close their marriage. But we have not even tried to close the marriage and see if that's a better option. We're still acting like we gotta make an open marriage work no matter what. And if she doesn't feel like it works, she should just suck it up until she can find the next guy to make their arrangement more tolerable. But clearly there's been a pattern of her being an emotional wreck over these men. So why do we keep on doing this shit? I feel like this issue is that you can't open your marriage if your marriage is extremely flawed to begin with. Opening it up is only gonna make it messier, and it's gonna exacerbate the issues that you already have in your relationship that's not secure to begin with. If you were a more secure couple, then it would work out. But clearly that's not the case. It also feels like that these people want two different things. He wants to be non-monogamous, and he clearly does not want to change that. And she wants to be monogamous with someone who doesn't make her feel like shit. But she doesn't know what else to do. So she's just bending over backwards to try to make things work. You know what's ironic? He says, Kiwi thinks you're amazing. The story I just told you about how she punched Evan, she told me that when we were discussing you. I told her how you're taking a break from dating, but you're still letting me date, which is amazing, Molly. I don't take it for granted. And Kiwi was saying how much she admires you for being able to do that, for giving me something that makes me happy, even though it's hard for you. And I do thank you for that. I really do. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't care what Kiwi thinks. If there is a core issue in a marriage between two people, some random bitch named Kiwi is the least relevant opinion here. And by the way, of course he would still be dating other people while Molly is the one taking a break. And of course she would let him do that. God forbid she stands the fuck up, and God forbid he isn't monogamous to his wife for 5 seconds. I did give Stewart an ultimatum about couples counseling, but I've never demanded that we close the marriage. I fantasized about it with Mitchell in therapy a few times, but I always came back to the same thing. I know Stewart is happier this way, and I also know deep down that is good for me too, whether I'm dating other people or not. I'm learning to be responsible for my own happiness. Girl, what do you mean him sleeping with other women is good for you too? Where is the evidence for that? Throughout this entire book, we have only seen you shitting and crying every time he brings up his side chick. You have had like 10 mental breakdowns already. The only thing this is good for is keeping your therapist employed. And then after that argument, there's a part where Molly reads cards that Stewart gives her every anniversary because they just met their 16th anniversary, and he writes how much he loves her. And I feel like she just added this part to convince herself and us that this is still a solid relationship, like at the core of it. And I'm just like, okay girl, whatever you gotta tell yourself. Anyway, so in the next chapter, we see her dating again, this time with a guy named Scott. And she meets him on OkCupid. He is also in an open marriage with 2 kids, and he's new to being non-monogamous. And it was actually his wife's idea to open up the marriage. They go on a couple of dates, and at some point she realizes that this is how she felt on her first date with Stewart. We then cut to a flashback of how she met Stewart for the first time at a friend's birthday party when she was in a relationship with another guy. Stu was decidedly not my type. He fit every negative stereotype of a Long Island Jew. He was loud, brash, and wore pants with pleats. His jokes were either offensive or self-deprecating. I found him obnoxious. But a few months later, when Stu learned that my relationship with William was over, he pestered Nina for information, wanting to know if I would go out with him. He liked me, and I needed to be liked. I needed it desperately. I agreed to give him a chance. Brother, ugh. You know, for once, I would like to feel pleasantly surprised at Stewart being a catch. And yet, time and time again, he fits exactly the stereotype of a non-monogamous man. Even when I looked him up later after finishing this book, he literally looked exactly how I pictured him, which was a bald, middle-aged white man. Somebody needs to come get him, because this is not looking good for the poly community, okay? We need to fight back against the stereotypes. And now obviously we see another root to the issue of how they even got together in the first place, because she is so desperate to be validated by another man liking her. But now that he's dating other women, she's like scrambling, trying to figure out how she can get validation from other men at the same time that she's not getting validation from him. It's a whole circus at this point. Let's go back to Molly and Scott. They have a great date and an amazing kiss, and he is so smitten with her that he volunteers to join her at a work conference so that they can still spend time together, especially because his wife has a new guy that she can't shut up about. And he said that last detail with a hint of disgust in his tone. So already we know how the story's gonna go. So Molly goes home from the date and she sees Stewart is working in his music studio in the basement, and she feels like she's seeing him with new eyes, because before she had always resented his dedication to his work, but now her heart just swells with appreciation for him and for who he is and what he does. A glimmer of an idea is forming alongside this feeling. Is it possible that my being happy with another man makes me love my husband more, not less? I can't explain how this works, but the evidence is collecting inside me. I am like a crucible where magical ingredients come together to create something new. Yeah, sure. I'm glad we have this one piece of evidence that being in an open relationship is making you love your husband more. And it's totally good for you guys. It's not like we haven't spent this entire book reading contradictory evidence of all your mental breakdowns and arguments and passive aggressive descriptions about your husband. And sure enough, like clockwork, she asks Stewart if it's okay to have Scott join her for a work trip, and Stewart encourages her to let the guy sleep over instead of just, booking a different hotel and sleeping away from each other. And instead of being glad about that, Molly starts to picture Stewart waking up next to Kiwi and then gets jealous. So she's like, no, sleeping together is too intimate. I'm not ready for it. We'll just stay in separate hotels. Funny how you were saying literally in the same page that this relationship was so good for you, and yet you're still playing these mind games and treating everything like a tit for tat situation. If your husband allows you to do something and it makes you worry that he will use that as an excuse to get away with doing the same thing, and you won't have a leg to stand on when you argue about it later on and say that it makes you feel uncomfortable, perhaps there are deeper issues going on here. Anyway, so Molly and Scott date for several months. He makes music playlists for her. They're definitely getting attached. Meanwhile, things are kind of rocky with Kiwi because even though she has reached a point of accepting her husband's other relationships and is on board with Molly being the primary partner to Stewart, she doesn't like that Stewart continues to date other women. Molly understands where Kiwi is coming from. If Scott wanted to date other women, it would probably bother me too. I like being the new and shiny one, but at the same time, I'm relieved that Stewart isn't capitulating to Kiwi's jealousy. After all, he never capitulated to mine. For him, having a variety of partners is the whole reason for open marriage. Bingo, he says. She says she wants to know if I'm out with someone else, but when I tell her the truth, she freaks out. Women, I say, shaking my head in mock disgust. Stu laughs out loud. Few things are more satisfying than making my husband laugh. Women, am I right? At therapy, Mitchell points out that she's been making great progress because instead of getting obsessed with a relationship or with Stewart's relationships, she has been focusing on herself, which is a great change. I don't really know how true that is though, because literally by the end of the chapter, when she tells Stewart that she and Scott might go on a weekend trip together to go fishing, Stewart says he's okay with that, and then he mentions that Kiwi has been asking him about taking a trip too, which automatically makes Molly stiffen. The context is basically every year, Stewart takes a work trip to Vegas, but this year Molly didn't want to accompany him anymore because Vegas is just not her scene. But now she's bothered by this because even if she doesn't want to go to Vegas, she doesn't want Kiwi going instead. And so they end up having an argument. I don't even need to read out loud any screenshots because we have been down this road too many times. To me, it just proves further that she only likes the relationship being open when she can have fun with another guy, but not when her husband can have fun with other women. That's not an open relationship if it only applies to you. So they eventually compromise where Stewart and Kiwi will go on the same kind of trip that Scott and Molly are planning. No plane travel, just an Airbnb within driving distance in a place that holds no special significance. And Molly can go away first. And she says, okay, that sounds reasonable. But it's not exactly even Steven though, because the kids will be at camp during her trip and then they'll be back home when Stewart is gone. But in her mind, she's rationalizing that it will be better this way because she can avoid maternal guilt when she's with Scott. And then when Stewart is with Kiwi, the kids will distract her from her jealousy. Again, I have to ask, if you need to distract yourself when your husband is with other women, are you actually chill with you guys being in an open relationship? Later on, when she is on her trip with Scott, she gets a phone notification for food delivery at her house and realizes that Stewart is home with Kiwi. She calls him and says, "What are you doing at the house? You brought her to our home?" Stewart is silent for a beat. "Whoa," he finally says. He lowers his voice, and I know he's shielding her from my rage. "You told me I could bring her over, remember?" "Like fuck I did," I shout. I want to make sure Kiwi can hear me on the other end of the line. Where are they right now, I wonder? The living room? The guest room? Our bed? No, Stewart wouldn't dare. My question is answered by the sound of Stewart's feet on tile, the bang of a screen door. He's left Kiwi in the kitchen and has gone to the back porch so she can't hear our argument. Instead, the neighbors will get front row seats. And I quote, he says, his own voice rising now too. "You didn't have to get a room, you said. It's silly, you said. So I called the hotel and they let me cancel." "I just said that to be nice," I explained. "I didn't mean it. You should have known I don't want her at our house." "You're right," he says sarcastically. "I'm so sorry I didn't read your mind when you said the opposite of what you meant." "Fuck you. Just get her out of my house and book a hotel." I hang up the phone. Then I lie down and close my eyes, letting tears trickle into my ears. After that call, Scott sees that Molly is upset. So she tells him what happened and he commiserates with her because apparently his situation is is actually much worse. You see, originally when he said that his wife was taking the kids somewhere so that they could go away together, the actual full story is that she is taking the kids to California to meet her boyfriend. And it turns out that she wants to move there to be closer to him. And she had asked Scott for a divorce a few days ago. Yeah, it is a sad situation, but he's like, you know what? Fuck Stewart and Diana. Let's just have a good time together. I'm so lucky to have you in my life. I'm definitely not depending on you for my sanity and happiness now that I'm getting fucked over. So later that night when Scott is asleep, Molly texts Stewart saying sorry for giving him mixed messages. And Stewart texts back saying he should be sorry and that it was stupid of him to think that an offhand remark was permission to have Kiwi at their house and Molly was right to be upset. Molly is shocked by this response. She's like, wow, we're getting so much better at fighting. Sadly, she is right, because how is it that we are almost at the end of this book and this is the first time Stewart has apologized for anything? I too was shocked. So she tells Stewart about Scott's wife asking for a divorce and it makes her glad that she and Stewart are solid. And he's like, always, baby, always. At this point, I'm like, okay, are we really gonna end this book concluding that open marriage was such a great thing for them? Because even though they had problems, at least it wasn't as bad as the guy whose wife just left him. Because to me, that's like saying, damn, you know, we've spent this whole time drinking piss and complaining about drinking piss, but hey, at least we don't eat shit. So to go along with this healing journey, a few weeks later, when Stewart is going on a hiking trip with Kiwi, Molly is able to keep herself busy doing her own activities and not dwelling on them together. Instead, she focuses on her own life and the present moment that she's living. I am glad that she has built a stronger sense of mental resilience and peace. But again, I ask, why put yourself in a situation where you had to actively force yourself to find your inner peace and busy yourself with new hobbies in order to not have a mental breakdown every time your husband is sleeping with another woman? That's like if I was stuck in a shitty job that was making me miserable and my boss was making me feel like crap and I started practicing meditation while I'm in the office to feel better. That doesn't change the fact that my job still sucks. I'm just picking up meditation in order to cope with the job being crappy. But they do seem to be improving, because when Stewart comes back and tells Molly about the domestic stuff that he and Kiwi did together, Molly gets resentful again because those were the same domestic things that she's been begging for Stewart to do, and she starts spiraling mentally because maybe he never did with her because she makes him feel like he's doing everything wrong. But then he shares how the exact conversation went when he and Kiwi were cooking together, which is that Kiwi literally told him he was peeling the potatoes wrong, and it was very no nonsense, and it wasn't like as bad as she was imagining it in her head. And then he admits that Kiwi has helped him understand a lot of things about their marriage, like why Molly has been so angry with him and that she's right that he doesn't help around the house enough. So he uses this moment to apologize for that and says he will try to do better. What I'm wondering is, why did you have to fuck other women to get you to realize you're not helping around the house when you could have just listened to your wife in the first place? Why did you need a second opinion from another woman that you're banging to validate your primary partner? But this is a huge step for them, right? And Molly agrees and feels like she's learning about their marriage through Scott too, because there are so many ways that Scott and Stewart are very different, and it actually makes her appreciate Stewart more. For example, Scott hates his job and she loves that Stewart is passionate about what he does, and she also likes that she and Stewart talk things through with each other while Scott and Diana don't do that. I'm like, okay, so is the cure to being in love with your partner and appreciating them again basically fucking another person who is going through something way worse than you are? Because that seems to be what you're saying here. Anyway, the conclusion is they have learned that their love for other people only makes them love each other more. Over the next few months, Scott is not doing well. He and his wife told their kid about the divorce on Christmas Eve. The wife is planning on marrying her boyfriend that she met only a year ago. Obviously, the kids are having a hard time because they are still very young. One time, Scott calls her in the middle of the night drunk and says, "Will you ever leave him, Molly? He'll never love you the way that I do." And then the next morning, he texts her apologizing and blaming it on the alcohol. He also wants Molly to meet his son. So now she's stressed out from all this family drama that's going on with him, and she knows that he wants her to leave Stewart and marry him and be a mom to his children, and that ain't happening because she still loves Stewart, but she also loves Scott and cares about him, so it's a hard place to be in. Eventually, after Scott and Diana get through the divorce, Molly and Scott meet up, and Scott breaks up with her because even though he loves Molly and wants to be with her, that ain't gonna happen. She tells him straight up that she will never leave Stewart, but then she's like, I love both you and my husband. Why can't things just stay the way that they are? But Scott says they can't because he has met someone else and he wants to be monogamous with her. This makes Molly feel dizzy, and she now has to leave and be alone, even though Scott is calling after her and saying that he's sorry. She has to process this breakup, but instead of crying like she usually does, she remembers her mom telling her that there will be more. And at the time when her mom first told her that, she thought that her mom meant there will always be more men, more boyfriends, more exciting flings to help escape the realities of marriage and motherhood so that we can continue this generational curse forever. But what the mom really meant was there will be more love. Aww. Question though. Considering the fact that all the love you have written about has been this constant cycle of men, isn't that basically the same thing? I get what she means though, because we are at the conclusion of the book, and we gotta talk about how the beauty of open relationships is that it shows our capacity to love. There is no limit to it. Love is vast and abundant and infinite, and I agree with that. Like, I see how it can be truly beautiful like that. We can open our hearts to be a bigger and bigger space and literally love so many people. And so with that beautiful sentiment, we end the book with her calling Stewart in this final scene. Scott and I just broke up, I say. My voice cracks as I say this, but it's okay. I'm okay. Oh, baby, he says. I'm so sorry. I was just about to leave to meet Kiwi, but I can cancel. Do you want me to? Stu has offered to cancel his plans with Kiwi before, on other nights when I burned with rage or cried myself to sleep. I've always steeled myself and told him to go, lied and said I'd be fine, but tonight is different. Tonight, I'll love myself enough to accept Stewart's love. Yay! What a beautiful story. Wow. The thing is, we only read about the benefits of open marriage at the very end of this book when we had to conclude it and like tie it up in a nice little bow. Otherwise, you were crying the rest of the time, like 95% of the book. I'm not quite convinced, you know? But who knows? Maybe they're more chill with their arrangement now. And by that, I mean the author just got used to it and can handle it better after being broken down so many times. Like maybe she picked up meditation or something. You know, whether it works out or it doesn't work out, they got money, so who cares? In conclusion, the straights are not okay. I hope that you have enjoyed this roller coaster with me, and I will see you next time. Bye.